What's up, guys? So this Elvis fact of the week is really just how much money did Elvis make in 1956. Now, most of you are familiar with his history, in poverty, growing up poor, living with his mom and dad in a one-bedroom home in Tupelo, Mississippi until he was a teen. The struggles they had, Vernon couldn't find steady work. They're really always without until they moved to Memphis when Elvis was a teen. A lot of you know this stuff, but some of you don't, and these videos are for all types. They appeal to all people. Some stuff is more hardcore stuff, some stuff is more elementary, but either way, we all had to learn it at one time. So I thought this would be an interesting video. How much money did Elvis make in 1956? So when Elvis was a teen, some of his first jobs was a movie usher, and he ended up getting fired from that for getting into a fight with the guy who was jealous of him because his girlfriend liked Elvis, which, Elvis had problems with a bunch of jealous guys in his life. Then Elvis, not in order, he has a few other little jobs, but the biggest one to note after that was he worked for Crown Electric, and he was delivering electrical products to different companies, commercial businesses, and he was hoping to, go to school and study and become an electrician, but, fate, or you might want to say God, had different plans for him. He really had some God-given talents, gifts, and abilities, and Elvis really is the epitome of the American dream. He used his God-given abilities to make money and become successful. And I think that Elvis and Elvis's story is really one that you can admire and one that is inspiring for you to all pursue your talents and abilities and go for it. And the sky's the limit. So Elvis, when he was a truck driver, he went into a record shop on his lunch break to make a record. Now, some people might think that Elvis, went there to get discovered. Some wanted to think that, he went to hear his voice. But Elvis gives a story that he actually went in there to give his mom a record as a gift. The two songs that he sang that day were My Happiness and That's When Your Heartaches Begin. And if you search out some of the early recordings of Elvis, you can find that, and boy, it sure does sound funny, because Elvis actually re-recorded That's When Your Heartaches Begin in 1956. Now, a little backstory before I really get to the answer here. It's quite interesting. The income tax records show for Elvis in 1955, so he had... actually, before I get to that, Elvis, as some of you don't know, actually his first hit was That's All Right Mama. They were messing around trying to produce something. Elvis was doing a bunch of ballads, and then him and Scotty went into, a little jam of That's All Right Mama, which Elvis performed, throughout the rest of his life. It became a hit in the South. And some people said that Elvis was in the movie theater. Actually, it was reported that Elvis was in the movie theater, and his mom and dad went to go down and tell him that his record was on the radio. And Elvis was just totally surprised, didn't even really want to go down for an interview because the DJ in Memphis wanted to interview him. Elvis was so nervous, sweating, that the guy already hit live on the mic and was asking Elvis a bunch of questions, and Elvis didn't know that he was being recorded yet. And so when the DJ got done talking to Elvis and interviewing him, he's like, hey, you know what, you were on the whole time. And he did it just to calm Elvis's nerves, which is a funny side note. All right, back to the story. In 1955, after having a little success, Bob Neal was his manager, Elvis made $25,000 for the year. The U.S. income tax reports show. But in 1955, Colonel Parker and Elvis met. Some say that's good, some say it's bad. I say it was definitely good for the 50s. Colonel Parker got him on TV in early 1956. He did 6 shows on the stage show, which he got paid for, as we all know. He went to Milton Berle, did 2. Ed Sullivan, Colonel asked for $5,000 to be on his show. Colonel turned him down because they said Elvis was too vulgar. But just later on, after Elvis got so many record-breaking ratings for especially Milton Berle when they said his performance of Hound Dog was too risque, and they wanted to film from the waist up after that on Ed Sullivan. Well, Ed Sullivan decided to call them back and be like, no, let's do 3 appearances, I'll give you $50,000, which was unprecedented for 1956. So Elvis's life was starting to change. He already bought a house for his family, but Elvis was becoming so popular that he realized that he needed so much privacy as his fans were camping out in his yard. Elvis would go out on tour, start production for a movie, and his parents were not getting any rest because there was no wall, there was no gate, there was no barrier, to stop the fans from coming in, which he loves his fans, but everybody needs their privacy. Okay, so let's talk about Elvis's first movie. Elvis made $100,000 for Love Me Tender. It was his first movie. It was actually called The Reno Brothers, but it was changed to the #1 single soundtrack for that movie, Love Me Tender. He was paid $1,000 for that, and let's not forget about his first #1 hit, which was Heartbreak Hotel, which he recorded in March of that year. It was Elvis's first #1 single. It sold 1 million records, 1 million copies actually by April of that year. And Elvis's first album when he went to RCA was a collection of a lot of his early hits and singles from Sun. It went to #1 on the charts for 10 weeks. And it was Elvis's first $1 million sales album. Early in 1956, Elvis went to Las Vegas. In April, he was paid $15,000 for his few, maybe I guess you could say unsuccessful appearances in Las Vegas, because that Vegas crowd didn't know him. They were all the older crowd. And we all know in 1969, Elvis came and smashed all the attendance records in Vegas. So that's another video right there. Elvis received, just in April, $37,000 for touring and $25,000 for royalties. And Elvis got to keep 75% of the money he made back then, because Colonel was very generous and only charged Elvis 25% for his dealings. And when Colonel later in the 60s realized how great of a manager he was, he charged Elvis the 50%, which he deserved the whole time. Just kidding, of course, being very sarcastic. So, can I get a drum roll? In 1956, in 1956, Elvis's U.S. income tax report shows that he made $282,349. So Elvis was a homeowner in 1956. He had #1 records, was all over TV. He was 21, remember. He had #1 records, #1 singles. He was just signed with RCA. Buying Cadillacs, buying the clothes that he wants, able to afford things for his mom and dad and himself. Elvis was actually the breadwinner of the family. Pretty soon, Elvis was actually going to have to move to another part of Memphis. He was going to have to buy Graceland, and he paid $100,000 for Graceland. So by 1957, Elvis was rolling in the dough. Now, you may say, $282,000? That doesn't seem like that much. Well, you got to remember it was 1956, and so I looked up how much would nearly $300,000 be in today's money, and it's about the $2 million range. So it's kind of hard to comprehend how Elvis could be the #1 entertainer of 1956, which clearly, hands down, he was. How could you only make $2 million? I don't know. It seems a little different. Maybe it's because things were priced so low. I mean, the loaf of bread was, 10 cents? He only had to spend $100,000 for that huge mansion on, I believe it was 10 acres of property in Memphis. All the Elvis fact checkers will go fact check that. Make sure you leave a comment down below. Tell me if I was right or wrong. But you could, your dollar went a lot farther back in 1956. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. That was how much Elvis made. His life totally turned around. And it's really a rags to riches story. And I hope you enjoyed this story, this Elvis fact for the week. Tune in next week for the next Elvis fact. And I hope you subscribe. I hope you like this video. If you do, make sure you click the buttons necessary. Hit the notification button so when I come out with a video, you are notified and you don't miss any videos. I'm very thankful for all the new subscribers to this page. Leave your comment down below. I really get a lot of comments and I'm so happy, but it's so many that it's hard to respond to you all. But I do read most of them. If I can't get to them all, I apologize. But Anyway, check me out on ElvisistheMan Instagram. I post nearly daily. Check out my stories on Instagram. I post a lot of rare audio and video clips. Anyway, if you have time, check out my Bible page and my fitness page, which I do a lot of work on those pages. So check them out. Again, thank you. Have a good night.